Today we're going to talk about how you can create a line animation in DaVinci Resolve using the EditorCollection. The new tool WippPath allows you to easily create a path animation without any Fusion knowledge. It also expands on Fusion's built-in capabilities, allowing you to not only create a dashed line, but also using a custom icon for the line. The tool allows you to draw your own custom path. You can choose how it animates on, add custom points, even add some middle points along the way, and add a custom icon that animates across the screen. So let's take a look at how to do it inside of DaVinci Resolve. Alright, on my edit page, I just have a picture of the United States map, just really simple, no labels, nothing like that. And inside of the effects library, WippPath is found under the generators, and so I can just grab it right here and drag it down and set it right above the world map. So the default option has one point that comes up, it draws a line over to point number 2, and those just stay there. And in the inspector, we have a bunch of controls. Right at the top, you'll notice it says draw path in Fusion. So this is one of the only tools we have to use the Fusion page for, just because it's really annoying and pretty limited to draw paths in the edit page viewer. To get into Fusion to draw the path, just hit this Go to Fusion button, and right away you'll notice that we can no longer see the map. To fix that problem, I did build in a feature, so if you click on the WippPath node, you can hit this Enable Preview button. And what that's going to do is pull in any media that's below the clip so it shows us in Fusion. Now we do want to turn this off when we leave Fusion, just to optimize performance. If you leave it on, not too big of a deal, but for the best performance, just disable the preview. When I actually draw my path, I do like to turn off point 1 and 2. So if I come down to point controls, I can just hit both of these checkboxes here, and that's going to disable those points. This just makes it easier to see what I'm doing and run a little bit faster. Right now the path is locked, but up on the top here, I have a bunch of controls. So it's on the Done option. If I just switch over to Modify Only, this will allow me to move these 2 points around. But I want to start over, so what I'm going to do is select both these points, and then just hit Delete on my keyboard. Now the tool is going to switch over to the Click a Pen, which just allows us to draw our own path. So let's start over on the West Coast, and we can just start clicking to add in new points. Sometimes when you're tracing out a road, the road's going to have a nice bend in it. So if you click and hold, it'll allow you to smooth out the path. So you can create a nice curve. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm just going to click and hold, drag it out just so it's a little bit smoother. Doesn't have as rough of edges. But I'm just going to work my way across the United States here and end over here on the East Coast. Alright, once that's done, you can just come up to the top and hit Done. This will make it so you can adjust those points and you can't accidentally mess something up. I also like to go to Modify, so that way I can come through and click on these, but I can't add new points or do any of that. I'm just going to delete these 2 points right here just to smooth it out a little bit. And another feature that Fusion has, if we select these points, we can just hit this Smooth button. So that's just going to smooth out the path. Alright, once that's done, I'm just going to come up to the top here, hit these 3 dots, and then just uncheck this Show Controls. That way that path is gone so we can easily see the dashes in the background. Now in the inspector, close the point controls, come to the path controls. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have enough dashes. So if we change this path length, we can just up the dashes until it reaches point A and point B. Above that, we can change what the actual style is. So dots is little circles, we have dashes, we have a solid line, and we also have a custom line. When I do custom, you see it's going to say use path style input in Fusion. And that's because we need to give it something to work with. For right now, let's just set it back to dash. Below that, we have stuff like the spacing. We can change the size of the shape, and with the dash, I can change the thickness of it. Real quick, I'm going to show you that custom line. So if I click custom, it's going to ask us to use that path input. If I come up to my media pool, I'm going to grab down one of my logos. So I'm just going to grab this one, drag it to the node graph, and close the media pool. Now I've set this up so whatever color this text is, that's the color input that you need to plug it into. So if I just take this media in and plug it into the yellow input, it's going to replace those path icons with my logo. So now you can see that just going along the path, and you have those same controls to change the spacing as well as the size of the icon. I'm going to delete that logo and switch it back to dash. Below that, we have the option to change the color, so I can just do custom color, and I can change this from any solid color, or I can even add in a gradient, so that way on the one side it's white, and then as it goes over, it transitions to black, and I can change all those colors right down here below. Let's close the path controls and come down to the point controls. So as I showed before, we can enable or disable those points up at the top, and below that we can change what the point style actually is. The first option is character, and down below here I have all the options for that. So first off, we can choose between solid and cutout. If I switch it to cutout, you can see it's going to show us the map behind the letter, and below that I can change what that is. So maybe I want to do point A and then point B. So I can just change the text, I can change the font, the size of it, all of that stuff right here. Above that, we have the controls for the actual points. So I can offset each of them if I want to move them around a little bit. I can change the size of each of them as well as the color for each of them. But we do have a couple of other styles. So we have outline, which is just a circle going around, and we can change the style and the thickness down here. My favorite is the pin option, and that just creates a location marker. And if I want, I can change the color, like I usually like doing some sort of orange like that. I can change the size of them. And with these ones, I do like to bring the Y offset up just a little bit, just so it's not quite touching the line. So it's something like that. And if I want, I can also extend the mask. So if I do that, it's just going to erode away at those dashes just to give some space around our point. In this case, I'm just going to bring it back down to 0, bring the point size up a little bit, and that's what we'll leave it at. I do want to show quick though, we do have a custom option. So if I hit custom, again, it's going to ask us to use the point style input in Fusion. So if I come up to my media pool, grab my logo again, I can plug this into the green input. You can see it's going to add in my logo at both of those points. Let's delete that, switch it back to pin, so that way we have those nice location markers. All right, all the way at the bottom here, we have this thing, additional points. If I hit the drop down on that, we can enable those, and it's going to add just 3 little points in the middle of our path. So we can come down here, change the color. Usually I like to match it with whatever color we chose up top here. So if I just grab this pick whip icon, I can just drag it over this point, and it's going to set it to orange. We have the option to change the size of each of these points, and then using these sliders, we can change the position that they're on throughout our path. So these can easily represent some stops along your path or some highlight points, whatever that might be. For this animation, I'm just going to disable those since we do not need them, and then I'm going to close the point controls group. Next up, we have the anim engine, which allows us to control everything about the animation. First off, we can turn on or off the in and out animations, as well as change how long those take. The default slider changes how many frames both the in and the out animation takes, but I could switch it to custom, so that way the in animation might take 50 frames, but the out animation only takes 25 frames. Let's just link those together and set this to 50 frames. We're also able to turn off the point animations or the line animation. So if I just want the starting point and the ending point to come up, I can do that just like so. Or I could turn off the point animations and turn the line animation on. So that way we have point A and point B, and then it just draws the line between them. I would have to say that's my favorite. Down below here, we have the option to swap the order, so it would animate from the right to the left in this case. Now, a really cool option is the continuous animation. If I drag this up a little bit and hit play, what it's going to do is animate it on, but then the line's just going to have a little bit of movement going in either direction. Below that, we have the option to change the easing curve for the points or the line separately. I'm just going to keep it at the default option because that's one I like the most. All right, now this is a really cool one, the custom icon option. If I enable this, it's going to ask us to connect another icon in Fusion. So for this one, I'm going to come to the media pool and I'm going to grab this car icon. If I connect this up into the pink input, you can see it's going to add a car onto our graphic. It's also going to have an animation, so it's going to start at the beginning and then animate across the path. In the inspector, we can do stuff like change the size because it is way too big right now. So if we bring it down to something more appropriate, we can also offset where it's at. So if we want to put it above the path, we can do it just like that. And we can even offset the angle. By default, the angle of the car is going to follow the angle of the path. If we want, we can just lock it to a static angle, so that way it's just going to stay at the same rotation the entire time, but still follow the path. Below that, we can change the start and end position. So let's say I want it to start somewhere in these mountains. If I go all the way to the beginning here, I can just shift the start position over until it starts there. And then maybe I want it to end over in this region. So I can just shrink the end position down. And now instead of animating across the entire path, it's going to start by those mountains and then animate halfway through. Let's just set those back to 0 and 1. And down below, we can change the animation settings for this. So the icon length is how long it takes for it to get from point A to B. So let's bring that up, make our journey a little bit longer. You can see now it's going to have a much slower animation, and it's actually going to run out of time before it starts animating off. So in this case, let's just come up to the anim engine, turn off the out animation so that way the path stays on there. And now we have a cool animation of our vehicle going across the United States. Below that, we can change the icon offset, so that's how long it takes for the car to actually start driving. So in this case, it starts on frame 30. That just gives it time for that path to draw. If we want, we can shrink this down so that way the car starts moving when the path is drawing. So you can see they're both going at the same time. The path animation is obviously a lot shorter, so that one will go first. But that way you can kind of have them overlapping a little bit. And the last control down here is the shadow control. So if I hit the shadow box, it's just going to add a nice drop shadow under the path, car, and all that stuff. That way it separates it from the map a little bit, gives it some nice depth. Once this is done, just disable that preview in Fusion, switch back to the edit page, and now you have this awesome map animation. Something I like to do a lot is combine this with Whip 3D camera. So if I grab that preset, just drag it down above this, I can hit this drop down menu to enable the Fusion overlay. And at the beginning, I'm just going to customize this a little bit. So I'm gonna reframe my camera. Let's move it in so we can just see that car at the beginning, and you can see a little bit of blacks coming forward just because it's running out of image. So I'm just gonna come to the background color, double click on this, hit pick screen color, and just grab that blue. Then we're going to move to the end and make sure that this is still in frame. And if we go through the middle here, we can just make sure that the car is in frame the entire time. That looks really good. And with some depth of field, we have a really good looking map animation. Well, I hope that gives you a really good idea of what the WippPath tool from the EditorCollection can do. If you're interested, check out the link down below to learn more about EditorCollection. It contains more than 20 tools, and it saves you hours in each project. Plus, in my opinion, it makes editing a lot more fun. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.